Hello there. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. And this is, as you may remember, the show that's designed to make the world safe for ADHD. I am a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice who treats a whole bunch of ADHD folks, kids and adults. And I'm also the father of an ADHD child who came along back in the dark ages when we didn't know too much about ADHD. So it was perhaps not the easiest match of father and son that it could have been. But we have much better information now. We have much better treatment methods now. The whole situation is much better. And we also have more awareness, which is vital, especially in school systems where ADHDers have a lot of trouble. And that trouble got a lot worse when we increased the requirement for compliance. We have teachers now who are giving 40 or 50% course credit just for turning the homework and papers or whatever in on time, which is nice, I suppose, if you're training administrative assistants, but it is not particularly helpful for the economy as a whole and for business as a whole. We need people who are rewarded for being brilliant, being bright, being intelligent, seeing the consequences of things, that sort of stuff. And that doesn't mean that they're going to do their homework on time. Okay, that was my own little private pitch. But what I'd like to talk about today, and this is something I see in my practice a lot, and it's people who are middle-aged, however you want to define that. I'm not sure anymore. I think it used to be 30 to about 60, but now who knows. Problem is, we have a lot of people out there who have ADHD, who have a family history that is totally consistent with ADHD. That is, a lot of people in their backgrounds that had trouble with the school system, with the education system, with consistency in all manner of things, which usually led to a bunch of job problems and that sort of thing. So those folks are what I would call a lost generation. They were people who had ADHD, which is easily and simply treated. Well, simply treated anyway. Easy part is sort of how far down the road of bad assumptions it's gone as far as treatment of an ADHD child. But the ADHD folks who are in their middle part of their lifespan, who've never been identified, who don't know what's going on, they are the folks that are, well, for me personally, I'm glad that I can help them out and explain things for them, but Lord, most of them have, I get two reactions basically. Either they're just sad and depressed about the amount of time they wasted because they didn't know what was going on and they didn't know how to help themselves, and they didn't know how to be nice to themselves, frankly. They got a lot of, if you're ADHD and you don't know you're ADHD, think of all the potential for negative comments from people, from bosses, from coworkers, from spouses. It gives people a lot of a negative sort of impression of themselves. They feel bad about themselves. They think they're maybe not as good as they should be, or not as good people as they should be. And it's kind of when you think about it, what a waste that is. Um, anyway, it touches it strums my emotional strings, shall we say. I start to react to that. Because, at this stage of the game, all I can do is help make their life better. I can't make up for the decades that they spent feeling horrible about themselves, or losing jobs, or losing relationships, or losing friends, all that sort of thing. You don't make that up. But what you try to do is encourage some level of acceptance. Hey, look, you didn't know what was wrong, so how could you be a better husband or wife? How be a better worker, employee? Be a better, blah blah. It's kind of heart wrenching, really. You have ADHD, and you have a moderate to severe case of ADHD. That's why, you're 40 years old and still working minimum wage jobs, or that's why you've been divorced 2 times, or, so on. That's why I am really a bug on people getting their children identified early and getting them treated early, okay? It's not enough to know you've probably got ADHD, or you might have ADHD, or you need to know for sure. And then you need to be in an improved treatment protocol, which typically does not include a whole lot of manipulation with diet or any of that other stuff. You need to know for sure that you have ADHD, or that your child has ADHD, because there's nothing like seeing a 40-year-old who's thought of him or herself as a failure, who just barely squeaked through school and has been working a bunch of jobs they hated or didn't like and probably weren't very good at because of all that. It really can get to you. And like I said, I get a lot of times I get basically 2 strong reactions when I say, you have ADHD, you've had ADHD your whole life, They're either sad and depressed for the lost time, for the time of their lives they can't get back, and the things they've lost along the way, the relationships, the jobs, all that sort of thing, the opportunities, basically. And then the other one is anger. It's just, why the heck did nobody do anything about this? Why didn't my parents dip? Why didn't da-da-da-da-da? That's a question that, of course I don't have an answer for, except to say, well, 30 years ago or so, we weren't nearly as aware of ADHD as we are now. But the problems with that are that ADHD has been around since, it's been described in medical literature for almost 200 years. So we know it's there. The deal then becomes, what do we do about it? What do we do to make sure that people are identified earlier? What do we do to reduce the number of folks who are basically lost? The most productive years of their lives are behind them, and then they finally get somebody who directs them to somebody, and I'm talking about the ones who were referred to me for an evaluation to figure out what's going on. Hey, you talk about wasting manpower, and since apparently we are having some shortage of skilled workers in the workforce, or at least that's what the headlines all tell us, what are you going to do? You're going to need more, need to employ the people that you've got available. And so, society, the country, we need to have people in the workforce who are trainable and all that other good stuff. But, you see somebody who has spent their entire life worrying about making mistakes, knowing that eventually they're going to make mistakes, they just don't know exactly when, thinking there's something really wrong with them, that maybe they're just stupid or real negative kind of things like that. Think of what that would do to you if that was your daily experience for years and years and years and decades and decades. Your opinion of yourself would not be very high. You would either think, in the depressive side of things, there's something wrong with me. I'm a screw up. I'm always going to screw things up. I can't fix it. I don't know what's going on. And there's nothing I can do about it. That's depression. And then the other thing is more the anxiety side of the house is, I know I'm going to mess up. I just don't know when. And I don't know how bad the consequences are going to be. It's going to be horrible, I bet you. I bet it'll be awful. I bet this time they fire me. And then those are the extremes you see when you're dealing with adults who are coming in for the first time to be evaluated. And they're typically not in real great shape. Their economic opportunities have been severely restricted. Their educational opportunities have been severely restricted. Their relationships are not in good shape. Their family relationships are not in good shape. Kind of every major area of their lives is a problem. And they also have a likelihood, their increased likelihood of having some kind of drug or alcohol problem because they're looking for something, anything, to feel better. And I know we don't know what this is going to be like in the future, but with the way marijuana legalization is moving ahead, I suspect that pretty soon, at least in my lifetime, marijuana will be legalized across the country. The interesting thing about that is almost all of my ADHD patients of a certain generation say, geez, the only time I feel normal, the only time I feel good is when I am stoned. No, I don't know, that may be total baloney. I just take it with a grain of salt. But the interesting thing for parents who are worried about gateway drugs and all that nonsense, folks who have ADHD and are treated for it are less likely to move on to recreational drugs than folks who have ADHD and are not treated for it. Okay? I don't know if that's the good news or the bad news, but it's the news. So, getting your child identified early is an important thing to do as a parent. It's, absolutely vital. If you think there's a question, if any teacher has mentioned that maybe that was a problem, you should probably get it looked at. Okay? Because it's a real downer, if you will, to see somebody after 20 or 30 years of trying to to fit in, and having undiagnosed ADHD and not knowing what's wrong. You can't compensate for something you don't understand. And so, this sounds like a little bit on a soapbox. You should have seen my week this week. The people I saw who were in just exactly that boat. They were in their 40s or so and had never been diagnosed. And they'd finally bump their heads against a wall they couldn't get around, and needed to find out what was wrong, and could it be fixed. And the diagnosis was easy. It's usually remarkably easy. I mean, I can mostly do it based on a detailed history, but we do the testing to make sure. And son of a gun, they've got it. They've got a pretty good dose of it. ADHD comes
You can have a little bit or you can have a whole bunch. And most of the folks I see who are middle-aged have a whole bunch. They've been fighting the good fight for a lot of years. Okay, that's not good for us. That's not good for the country. It's not good for the economy. And it's certainly not good for the individuals involved. All right, that's me for this week. Glad I got that off my chest a little bit. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice. I spend a lot of my time evaluating and treating ADHD in people of all ages. I am also the father of an ADHD child. I married into an ADHD family. What I look back on it is probably because they were kind of fun to be around. But we're here to make the world safe for ADHD. Because remember, so-called normal people don't change the world. People who are a little bit off, who are outside the box, those are the ones that change the world. And it could be your ADHD child who does that for us. Okay, I can be reached at terrygingrassphd.com. That's my website. And we'll see you here next time. And I'll be coming back from a workshop in California. So I will probably be a little jet lagged, but we'll see you then.